The name Yidhari derives from the outer god Yidhra of the expanded Cthulhu mythos, representing seductive immortality and decay disguised as beauty. And Murphy is of Irish origin, meaning sea warrior. How does that matter for this video? Well, frankly it doesn't, but Lucia's name Elowin also has Irish origins, so I thought that was some cool lore connection. Anyway, let's talk about her kit and how she plays, her best weapons, disk drives and disk drive sets, her combos, her main and substats, her teams and Mindscapes, and lastly, let's also talk about her pros and cons. Welcome! I am Rivenous, and this is your complete XXL in-depth guide to the outer sea god warrior Yidhari Murphy. Yidhari is an ice rupture DPS who specializes in consuming her own HP to generate decibels and unleash charge basic attacks as well as empowered EX specials. Her damage is heavily tied to her current HP, and we always want to make sure to stay below 50%. As per usual, Yidhari's kit looks more complicated than it needs to be, so let's break it down and simplify things for a clearer, easier understanding of how to actually play her. Let's begin with her core skill. Yidhari is a Rupture Agent and as such works as you would expect a Rupture Agent to work, and when Yidhari enters battle, she begins combat at 60 adrenaline. The lower Yidhari's HP, the more damage bonus she gains, up to 100% when her HP falls below 50%, and that bonus is retained for up to 5 seconds if her HP is restored to 50% or above. Given a normal gameplay cycle, you can expect to always have this bonus active at its maximum value. Yidhari's skills also generate a lot less decibels than usual, and instead she gains 10 decibels for every 1% HP lost. This can be very important for a lot of reasons, and we will touch upon it after the kit overview. However, Yidhari still generates the same amount of decibels by other means, such as defensive assists, triggering anomalies, and so on. We will not use her regular special, dash attack or regular EX special, and while we may or may not use her quick assist, dodge counter or assist follow-up, they all do what we expect them to do, so we won't talk about them any further. Instead, let's talk about her 3-part basic attack string, with the third hit restoring 10% of her maximum HP. Due to how she can chain into her basic 3 out of various combos we will frequently use, as well as her being heavily reliant on ways to recover HP, we will also make frequent use of her basic 3. More on this later. We will however never use her basic 1 or basic 2. Before we continue with the rest of her kit, we first have to talk about her unique resource, Frost's Crushing Weight. Frost's Crushing Weight is, as per usual, the resource bar right below her HP bar, and holding down her basic attack button will consume her HP while filling up said bar. This bar has 3 charge levels, with the 3rd level being reached when the bar is full. We get back to this in just a bit. When releasing her basic attack button, she will then start spinning around, dealing continuous ice damage based on her current charge level, finishing the attack with a big slam down attack. I will refer to this slam down as her enhanced basic attack. The spinning attack itself has complete dogshit multipliers, and we do not ever want to actually fully channel it. At least in Deadly Assault, that is. It does have great grouping however, so there is a reason to use it for the sole purpose of grouping enemies in Geo Defense or even Threshold Simulation. If she has at least 2 charge levels, that means her bar is filled halfway, we can press her basic attack at any time to chain directly into her basic 3 after her enhanced basic attack. She will then increase the damage dealt by said basic 3 by up to 30% based on her current charge level. At 3 charge levels, she will then also gain increased interrupt resistance on top. Lastly, her enhanced basic attack also deals increased damage based on her current charge level. Given the 30% basic 3 damage bonus and her increased multipliers at charge level 3, we always want to make sure to fully charge Frost's Crushing Weight. Lastly, also while charging or spinning, if Yidhari is attacked, her damage taken is reduced by 25%, and if she is attacked while charging up, she will launch a counter attack, then instantly gain 1 charge level. Pressing her special, EX special or dodge while spinning or charging will cast her special attack Surging Cold Crushing Pursuit, regardless of her current adrenaline. It will inflict some damage and trigger an additional effect based on the current circumstance this skill was used in. If the skill collides with an enemy attack, it will trigger Surging Cold. Please note, this is not a parry. If the skill hits an enemy while stunned, it will then trigger Crushing Pursuit. Triggering any of the 2 effects will instantly raise the charge level to the maximum, and because her entire game plan revolves around this, it is actually pretty difficult to not always have her charge level at the maximum. After triggering either Surging Cold or Crushing Pursuit, if Yidhari has at least 60 adrenaline, we can then press her EX special or basic attack button to activate her EX special Glacial Crush. This EX special will deal massive damage and daze, restore 33% of her missing HP, and if used after Surging Cold, in addition also restores 15 adrenaline. Due to the adrenaline restore, we are able to use her EX at least once outside of the stun window, and given her massive multipliers, we should do so. This EX special can then also be followed up with her enhanced basic attack and in turn then also her basic 3. Yidhari also has a regular EX special, but it is really bad in comparison and hence we never want to use it. Her chain does what a chain is supposed to do, albeit it deals just slightly increased damage if used during Ether Wellspring, and because of that, even if it is only a little bit of more damage, we want to do so. After reaching 3000 decibels, using any of her enhanced basic attack, EX specials or her chain attack will then consume 3000 decibels to activate Ether Wellspring for 30 seconds. I do want to emphasize that she has no other means of extending Ether Veil, and that can lead to actual downtime on Ether Veil. More on that later. After doing so, she can then use her actual ultimate for free once within the next 30 seconds. Her ultimate deals a fair amount of damage and daze, but otherwise there is not really too much special about it. However, there may be times when her ultimate is triggered too early, like with Fufu, and because there's only 30 seconds to use it, it may run out before the stun window. Let's finish her kit with her additional ability. With another character being stun or support, if Yidhari is below 50% HP, she will gain 30% crit damage, take 25% less damage, and while she's an Ether Wellspring, her enhanced basic attack as well as her EX special Glacial Crush will also summon tentacles to attack in tandem with her. This effect can trigger once every 12 seconds, and these tentacles are considered EX special damage. That covers her kit, so let's talk a little bit more about a few important aspects of her kit. First up, some additional notes about her tentacles. They count as a separate EX special launch, think of it like a projectile. This means they will always provide one stack for Yunkui Tails and also count for Puzzle Sphere's crit damage condition. The tentacles summoned by her chain and ultimate are only visually present and they do not count as EX special. Realistically, due to boss mechanics and parries, we can expect a tentacle slam around every 14 to 16 seconds and not every 12 seconds. This, however, primarily impacts Puzzle Sphere uptime, but is hence also not anything critical. Lastly, let's also touch a little bit more upon her decibel generation. She gains around 50% less decibels than other characters from her skills and instead generates them by consuming her own HP, so we need to make sure to basically always restore her HP back up, as she will not consume any HP if below or at 25% of her maximum HP. Otherwise, we will massively miss out on decibels for her, and that not only affects her ultimate uptime, but also Ether Veil. The latter is very important for the Deadly Assault buffs, and your decibel generation can influence how much she relies on Lucia, at least to a certain extent. Secondly, the decibels she generates by consuming her HP are not actually shared to her teammates. This is absolutely crucial to know, as it will influence how many ultimates you are able to use on them. The more you on-field Yidhari, the less decibels your team gets. This makes Yidhari a very match-up reliant agent. If the enemy allows for a lot of parries, this is not much of an issue, as you can freely generate decibels on your other characters simply by parrying or using their assist follow-ups. Because of all of this, going for full team chains for more team decibels instead of double chains on Yidhari is actually a viable option, and which one is preferably will heavily depend on the matchup and the teams you play her in, as well as the current game state, of course. Personally, I found double chains still to be the best choice, but I do want to mention it. With that said, about 35% of her damage comes from her EX special, and her tentacles are part of her EX special as well. Hence, our skill priority will be core, EX special, chain and basics into assist, and lastly dodge. Because we would much rather parry with her special or another teammate, and also don't care too much about eating some damage due to her reduced damage taken, we can in fact leave her dodge at level 1 as we won't really want to use it. Yidhari's most commonly used and also most basic filler combo is holding down her basic attack until the bar is full, then pressing her basic attack to follow up with her enhanced basic attack and her basic 3. We will use this frequently, not only for the purpose of damage and to restore her HP, but also simply as a filler while we have nothing else to do and the boss just happens to be standing around. Once before every stun window, we will have enough resources to use her special counterattack once. We hold her basic pressed, and the moment we get attacked or just slightly after, we press her special attack to trigger Surging Cold. We then can press her basic attack thrice to follow up with her EX special Glacial Crush into her enhanced basic attack into her basic 3. As a side note, we do not have to wait until the bar is full, as triggering Surging Cold will instantly fully replenish the bar. Since her boss, the Wandering Hunter, is highly aggressive, we can and also should forego her basic 3 if we have a parry window instead. For her stun combo, we have a few different options which all have different various use cases. Personally, I found double chains on Yidhari to be the best and most applicable one for most of the time, but let's cover them all as they do have, again, their different use cases. Regardless of the combo used, we want to make sure to have 120 adrenaline and her ultimate ready. Optimally, we have already triggered Ether Veil before the stun window begins, as it will empower our chains, give us additional tentacle slams and also the max HP, which translates again into more damage as well. We initiate the stun window with another character, then select Yidhari. We hold basic attack for just a little bit, then instantly press her EX special to trigger Crushing Pursuit, then press her basic attack to follow up with her EX special Glacial Crush. We swap out of her EX and re-trigger the stun using another character, optimally our support, to reapply Moonlight Lullaby. Then I select Yidhari again. Now we use her ultimate, then shortly hold her basic attack and follow up with her special, EX special, and then again her enhanced basic attack. Optionally, we can also use her basic 3 at the end as well. Another possible stun combo would be to open and trigger the stun window with her EX special Glacial Crush into her enhanced basic attack and basic 3, then go for chains on your other two teammates and enter the chain on Yidhari. Now we use her ultimate and then hold her basic pressed, just shortly press her EX to trigger Crushing Pursuit, then follow up with her EX special into her enhanced basic attack and again optionally basic 3. I would not recommend this combo when playing with Lycaon, as you will miss out on his stun damage multiplier for the first EX special and the enhanced basic attack, and generally I found this combo not only worse, but also harder than the first one. Lastly, a double ultimate combo is possible, but it requires a very high amount of planning and is also highly unreliable to pull off. However, if you happen to find yourself in a situation where you are at approximately 2000 or more decibels when entering the stun window, you can do the following. We open the stun window with another character, then select Yidhari and cancel the chain. We now use Yidhari's ultimate, then cancel the chain again. Shortly press basic into her special, EX special and enhanced basic 3, then again hold basic, special and EX special. We can now finish the stun window with another ultimate. To better understand how these combos actually look in practice, let's have a look at a real gameplay example. I begin combat on Lucia and open up with her basic 5 to get into Ether Veil as soon as combat starts. I use the quick assist into Yidhari and then start charging up her Frost's crushing weight. As soon as the bar is full, I then let go and press basic to cancel the spin to immediately go into her enhanced basic right afterwards. I then hold basic pressed yet again and immediately counter his attack with my special to trigger Surging Cold, which I can then follow up with her EX special Glacial Crush into her enhanced basic afterwards. However, there are two important notes to make here. First, the reason I use her EX special here is to not accidentally overflow on adrenaline a little bit later into the fight. Secondly, using it here is actually a mistake. The Wandering Hunter has a very specific boss mechanic where we want to build stacks on him using dodge counters or assist follow-ups. As of this moment, he has no stacks, and given how her EX special is a large part of her damage profile, we are missing out on up to 35% sheer damage bonus on this attack. The right call here would have been to delay this until a little bit later into the fight after building some stacks on him. Anyway, I did this, so let's continue. I then parry the next attack with Fufu into her assist follow-up to build the first stack, and then swap to Lucia to cast her EX special to apply Moonlight Lullaby. I then switch out of her and start charging Yidhari's basic to generate more decibels, then again press basic to use her enhanced basic attack and parry the next incoming attacks with Fufu and Lucia. I make sure to input Fufu's assist follow-up before parrying with Lucia to generate one additional stack on Wandering Hunter and do the same with Lucia as well. A last parry on Yidhari into her assist follow-up and we are at 4 stacks. I charge again, then parry with Fufu, and this will make Yidhari automatically cast her enhanced basic attack and also trigger Ether Veil. At this moment we are on a timer. We have to use the ultimate within the next 30 seconds, and due to that I use Fufu's EX special here to get into the stun window faster. I switch to Yidhari to charge up and parry with Lucia, then use her assist follow-up. Again, this is important since we want to refresh the stacks the Wanderer has. I charge up Yidhari once more, then parry a last time onto Fufu and initiate the stun window with her assist follow-up. I select Yidhari, cancel the chain, hold her basic to begin charging and instantly cast a special to trigger Crushing Pursuit, which I can then follow up with her EX special. I switch out of her EX, then cast Lucia's EX special into her basic 5 to re-enter the dream state, apply Moonlight Lullaby and re-trigger the chain. I select Yidhari again and immediately cast her ultimate after her chain. We are on 2 timers here. The first being Yidhari's own ultimate timer, and the second also being the stacks on Wanderer, which are about to run out rather soon. I then enter the stun window by holding down her basic attack, immediately casting her special into her EX special and finish the combo with her enhanced basic attack into basic 3. And that's honestly it. Yidhari in itself is pretty simple to play, with the most important takeaway being to make sure you have 120 adrenaline and her ultimate up during the stun window. In my opinion, the actual difficulty of Yidhari doesn't lie within her kit, but within Wandering Hunter, as obtaining and maintaining the sheer damage buff stacks on him can be quite difficult sometimes, and also happen to be somewhat reliant on RNG, as him standing around doing nothing is actually a thing. Before we talk about the weapons, I wanna touch just briefly a bit upon Lucia and how much she actually matters for Yidhari. In my pre-release analysis, I said is not as reliant on her as Yizhuan or Manato are, as she can at least provide her own Ether Veil, even if the uptime can sometimes be a little bit finicky. Because of that, while what I was said was technically not wrong, I do want to correct myself a little bit here. Yidhari still does around 40% of her total damage outside of the stun window, but she will primarily activate Ether Veil right before stun, and that means that a good portion of her total damage dealt is not actually within Ether Veil. Every single run I did without Lucia has been massively worse, not only due to Ether Veil itself and Yidhari's kit, but obviously also due to the deadly assault buffs as well as Lucia's buffs. Yes, Yidhari is not as reliant on Lucia as Manato and Yizhuan are as of right now, but the difference between having and using Lucia with Yidhari or using Panda instead is still massive, and if you can, I would highly recommend playing her with Lucia instead of pretty much every other option. And that's about it. It isn't the end of the world, but Lucia is still her best on slot support. Anyway, that said, onto her weapons. Yes, her signature is her best in slot, and that should not be a surprise. However, these calculations do not include any boss mechanics or deadly assault buffs. Given how Yidhari has effectively only one singular boss as of right now, if we include the buffs from both Deadly Assault as well as from the Wandering Hunter, her signature is even less needed as her sheer damage bonus it provides is now diluted. But as this is very boss and also buff specific, let's go back to the other calcs. If you don't have her signature, an R5 Will-O-Wisp or Yijuan signature Qingming Birdcage will suffice. Essentially, all the crit rate weapons are her next best choice, but the difference between those and either of an R5 Radio Wave Journey or R5 Puzzle Sphere, that is the craftable weapon, is not too big either. If you run either of Radio Wave or Puzzle Sphere, prioritize crit rate in slot 4 over crit damage. Given how she does around 90% of the team's total damage, her weapons look honestly pretty good. A 4-piece Yunqui Tails is her best in slot choice, and with her tentacles counting as EX special damage, she can also well maintain the stacks on it. As for the 2-piece, Woodpecker Electro is her best choice, but if you have a lot of crit rate substats, a 2-piece Bruncheon Blade or even Polar Metal will do well enough. There isn't really much to say here. For the 2-piece, choose whatever has better substats, and you can effectively just share your Yijuan discs with her. That is, except her slot 5. Crit damage in slot 4, ice damage in slot 5 and HP % in slot 6 are her best choices. If you run either of Puzzle Sphere or Radio Wave Journey, prioritize crit rate in slot 4. HP % in slot 5 works as well, but despite having a lot of damage % in her kit, ice damage still wins out by a small margin. As per usual, choose whatever has better substats. And speaking of which, as for her substats, focus on crit values first and foremost, then HP %, and lastly flat HP and then flat attack. Try to focus on getting as close to 100% crit rate in combat first and foremost. Yunqui Tail provides 12% and her signature 20%, which means we are looking at 68% maximum in the stat screen. If you run an R5 Will-O-Wisp, the maximum is 64%. Here is a well-built Yidhari with her signature, and this is also the build used in the showcases. And here is a well-built Yidhari without her signature. You can probably notice that the build does not really change too much. Her Mindscape 1 reduces her EX special cost by 10 and allows us to essentially double cast her EX special Glacial Crush twice for a total cost of 85 adrenaline. This Mindscape should not be underestimated as it can allow us to either shorten our stun rotation by quite a bit and hence get in more damage within the shorter time, which also allows us to use an additional enhanced basic afterwards, or double cast her EX outside the stun window. Regardless of which option we choose, it allows us to generate more decibels, which can be huge for certain comps and also allows for an easier double ultimate stun combo. Lastly, her basics and EX special will also ignore 20% of the target's ice resistance. Her M2 grants her 40% crit damage and increased adrenaline regeneration, which in combination with her M1 will just work very well together. Not much to say here, it is a good Mindscape. Her M4 increases her decibel generation from her core by 10% and increases her max HP by a further 5%. Yet again, a Mindscape which makes it much easier to double cast her ultimate in the stun window, and so the increased HP means more sheer force, which is a small damage boost as well. As for her M6, it grants her 25% sheer damage and could also fix your skill issues. However, I found it personally extremely difficult to die on her even at low HP, so this really is primarily 25% sheer damage. Honestly, not the craziest Mindscape in my opinion, especially given how this sheer damage is heavily diluted by boss mechanics, deadly assault buffs, her signature and possibly also other sources such as Lucia's Mindscape 2. Also means this Mindscape will perform worse than calculated here. Yidhari is a rupture agent, and if you didn't expect Lucia to be her best in slot option, I don't really know what to tell you. As previously touched upon, she is not as reliant on her as Yizhuan or Minato are, but Lucia is still a substantial upgrade over literally any other option available. Fufu is Yidhari's most comfortable partner and allows you to focus much more on Yidhari and her playstyle. However, Fufu's Decibel refund can sometimes lead into you missing out on Yidhari's ultimate, as you might activate Ether Veil just a little bit too early. Lycaon is not only a competitive option for Yidhari, if played correctly he can easily match or possibly even outperform Fufu. Lycaon also has a much easier time skipping the miasma phase than Fufu has. As it has been the case before for both Minato and Yizhuan, Jingyi is a great partner for Yidhari as well. However, I personally found it somewhat difficult to actually utilize Jingyi versus Wandering Hunter specifically, as I did not really get any time to channel her basic 3. This is much more likely to be a skill issue with Jingyi rather than anything else, however. So, from my personal experience, this may be surprising, but I found Trigger to be her best in slot option. I have consistently achieved my highest scores with Trigger without the need to skip the miasma phase, and even when I've played the stage mechanics poorly, I still got a sizable score of 54k or above. But take it with a grain of salt, maybe I just really can't play Trigger well apparently, or not, I don't know. Regardless, when playing with Trigger, I would highly recommend Fossilized Core or Blazing Laurel over her own signature. The defense red isn't really doing anything after all. I also want to give a special shout out to Collida, who is not only able to easily skip the miasma phase at M0, but also can easily achieve 5 stun windows at Mindscape 2 or higher. While she is worse than any other choice at a baseline, especially if you happen to get 5 full stun windows, she is capable of competing with others in the 50k range. Orphe and Lighter work for Yidhari as well, however Yidhari already has a substantial amount of damage bonus, which simply diminishes Lighter's buffs by quite a bit. The stun extension is fantastic for her, but the increased defense of Wandering Hunter as well as the boss mechanics and current deadly assault buffs do not really play into this team's favor. Hence, as of right now, and for Wandering Hunter specifically, I deem this team worse than any other option. But it might be much better in the future versus other bosses, for example marionettes. If you run this team, prioritize HP percent in slot 5 over ice damage. If you are free to play, Collida and Pan Yang-he, Nicole or even Lucy will be doing just fine. I would highly recommend Panda over both Nicole and Lucy, but if you really want to play Lucy or Nicole and you don't have M6 Panda, they are better than not having any third slot partner. While Nicole's Death Threat doesn't really do anything here, she can at least provide 15% crit rate at M6, plus whatever your choice of weapon and distress provide. Lastly, with Dialan being a stunner as well, we can at least take a guess that she might be really good for Yidhari. However, this is speculation and we will not know until the livestream. Yidhari's damage is distributed somewhat evenly between her basics, chain and EX specials, and hence is somewhat expensive to invest in. Her weapon is not necessary, but she also is not a significant improvement over Minato without it. Whether or not that is a good thing, you can decide for yourself. Yidhari is part of the oversaturated ice type, and she also has effectively only one boss she currently does well against. Yes, the marionettes exist, but they haven't seen the light of day since 2.0. She is however relatively easy to play at a baseline, with her difficulty coming much more from her shill boss's mechanics rather than her own kit. Yidhari also has a good selection of teammates, and while she is not reliant on Lucia, she is still a massive improvement over Panda. And lastly, she has a Barret. And with that, we are at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment on your thoughts on Yidhari and join the Discord. A special thanks to my YouTube and Patreon members who make this content possible. If you wish to support me, you will find a link to my Patreon in the description. And as always, I appreciate all of you and wish you a great day. Peace!